Have you ever sat alone late at night staring at the ceiling and felt this heavy weight in your chest? You feel it because you're questioning whether someone in your life truly values you? You're trying to convince yourself they care even when their actions are screaming otherwise. You see, love, care, and respect aren't things you should have to beg for. They're gifts freely given by those who truly see your worth. The truth is, not everyone in your life is there for the right reasons, and sometimes we don't want to admit it. We hold on to people who show us time and time again that their priority isn't us. Why? Because the thought of letting them go feels unbearable. But my friend, sometimes you need to face the pain of truth to reclaim your peace. Let me tell you about 4 behaviors, 4 unmistakable signs that reveal someone doesn't truly care about you. First, they dismiss your feelings. Oh, this one cuts deep. You open up, you bare your soul, and what do? They shrug it off like your emotions are nothing. You're overreacting. It's not that serious. Why are you making a big deal out of it? Those words, they're daggers to your heart. When someone dismisses your feelings, they're telling you that your pain, your joy, your struggles, they don't matter to them. People who care about you may not always understand what you're going through, but they'll honor your feelings. They'll listen. They'll try. You open your heart, you trust, and you let yourself be vulnerable. That's what connection is supposed to be about, isn't it? You take that leap of faith, hoping the person on the other side will catch you, honor your feelings, and hold space for you. But instead, they shrug you off. They tell you you're overreacting, that you're being dramatic, that it's not that serious. And suddenly the pain in your chest isn't just from the situation itself, it's from the realization that the person you counted on doesn't care enough to validate what you're going through. When someone dismisses your feelings, they're not just brushing off an emotion. They're rejecting a part of you. Your feelings are tied to your experiences, your memories, your beliefs, and even your identity. When someone says you're overreacting, they're essentially telling you that what you're experiencing doesn't matter, or worse, that you don't matter. And that cuts deeper than words ever should. Let's be honest, dismissing someone's feelings is one of the most disrespectful things a person can do. It's a subtle way of saying, I don't care enough to understand you. And often it doesn't even come across as outright cruelty. It's sly, insidious, and sometimes even masked as logic or reason. They say, I'm just trying to help you see it clearly, as if invalidating your feelings is somehow for your own good. But the truth is, they're not trying to help you, they're trying to avoid the responsibility of dealing with your emotions. People who care about you will take the time to listen. They may not always have the perfect words or solutions, but they'll show up. They'll sit with you in your pain, celebrate with you in your joy, and try to understand the world through your eyes. Dismissing your feelings, that's the behavior of someone who can't or won't see you for who you truly are. And when someone refuses to see you, they're telling you loud and clear that their convenience matters more than your heart. You might start to second guess yourself. You think, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I'm too sensitive, too emotional. And that's exactly what happens when someone dismisses you. You begin to internalize their lack of care as a reflection of your own value. You stop trusting your own emotions, questioning whether you're even allowed to feel what you feel. But let me tell you something, your feelings are valid. Every tear, every frustration, every ounce of joy and pain, it's all valid because it's real to you. When someone dismisses your feelings, they're creating a dynamic where you feel like you need to fight for the right to be heard. You start to work harder to explain yourself, to justify your emotions, to make them see why it matters. But care shouldn't be a courtroom. You shouldn't have to plead your case to be understood, to be supported, to be valued. The people who truly care about you won't make you jump through hoops for empathy. Think about the moments when you've been at your lowest. Maybe you were overwhelmed, stressed, or heartbroken. You turned to someone hoping for comfort, and instead you got indifference or even criticism. They told you to get over it, or that you were making a big deal out of nothing. Do you remember how that felt? It wasn't just disappointment, it was betrayal, because in that moment they weren't just dismissing your feelings, they were abandoning you emotionally. And here's the thing about dismissiveness, it's a pattern. Someone who dismisses your feelings once is likely to do it again and again. It's not a one-time slip, it's a reflection of how they value or don't value your emotions. You'll start to notice it in small ways. You'll share something exciting and they'll respond with a distracted, "Oh, that's nice." You'll express frustration and they'll say, "Why are you so worked up?" Over time, these small dismissals add up, eroding your sense of trust and connection. You might try to confront them, to tell them how their dismissiveness makes you feel. And sometimes they'll apologize, promising to do better, but other times they'll double down, accusing you of being too sensitive or difficult. They'll twist the narrative, making it seem like you're the problem for wanting to be heard. And that's when you realize that their dismissiveness isn't accidental, it's a choice. Let's be clear, dismissing someone's feelings is about control. It's a way of shutting down the conversation, of avoiding accountability, and of maintaining power in the relationship. When someone dismisses your emotions, they're effectively saying, I don't want to deal with this. And while they may think they're avoiding discomfort, what they're really doing is pushing you further away. You deserve better than that. You deserve people who make you feel seen, heard, and valued. People who care about you won't always get it right, but they'll try. They'll ask questions, they'll listen without judgment. And they'll make an effort to understand where you're coming from. Dismissing your feelings isn't just hurtful, it's a sign that they're unwilling or unable to meet you halfway. Sometimes the person dismissing your feelings is someone you deeply care about. It might be a friend, a partner, or even a family member. And that makes it even harder to acknowledge the truth. You want to believe they care because the alternative feels unbearable. But ignoring their behavior doesn't make it hurt any less. If anything, it prolongs the pain, keeping you stuck in a cycle of seeking validation that may never come. What you need to understand is that your feelings are your compass. They guide you, telling you what feels right and what doesn't. When someone dismisses your emotions, they're trying to silence that compass to make you doubt your own sense of direction. But don't let them. Trust yourself. Trust what you feel. Your emotions are there for a reason, and they deserve to be acknowledged, even if the person in front of you refuses to do so. Over time, dismissiveness can chip away at your confidence. You start to shrink yourself, holding back your feelings to avoid being invalidated. You stop sharing your joys, your fears, your frustrations because you've learned that they won't be met with care. But that's no way to live. You weren't put on this earth to tiptoe around someone else's indifference. You deserve relationships where you can be your full, authentic self, feelings and all. Walking away from someone who dismisses your feelings isn't easy. It requires strength, courage, and a deep belief in your own worth. But sometimes walking away is the only way to protect your heart. Because the truth is, people who care about you won't question whether your feelings matter. They'll show you through their actions that your emotions are safe with them. When someone dismisses your feelings, it doesn't just create a moment of discomfort, it plants seeds of self-doubt that can grow and take root over time. You start to wonder if maybe you're being too much, asking too much, or expecting too much. That's the sneaky power of dismissiveness. It doesn't just silence your emotions in the moment, it makes you question your right to feel in the first place. And when you begin to doubt your feelings, you also begin to doubt your voice, your instincts, and your worth. Think about how vital your feelings are to who you are. They're the raw, unfiltered reactions to your experiences, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. When you're happy, your feelings radiate joy. When you're hurt, your feelings are the alarm bell signaling that something isn't right. These emotions are your guide, helping you navigate the complexities of life and relationships. But when someone dismisses them, they're effectively saying your guide doesn't matter. This dismissal is like trying to navigate a dark forest without a map. You're left stumbling, second-guessing every step, unsure if you're heading towards safety or deeper into danger. The person who dismisses you may not realize or care about the damage they're causing, but it's real. Over time, you may start to internalize their rejection of your emotions, treating your own feelings with the same indifference or criticism they do. Let's take a closer look at what this does to your relationships. When your feelings are dismissed repeatedly, it creates a one-sided dynamic. You might stop bringing up concerns or sharing your emotions altogether, not because you don't feel them, but because you haven't been conditioned to believe they won't be heard. You hold back to avoid being labeled as too sensitive or overdramatic. But by doing so, you're sacrificing authenticity, which is the foundation of any meaningful connection. True connection requires vulnerability, the willingness to be seen and understood, even in your most fragile moments. Dismissiveness shuts that down. It tells you that your vulnerability isn't safe, that it won't be met with compassion or care. And without vulnerability, relationships become superficial. They lose depth, intimacy, and trust. You might find yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people, yet you feel profoundly alone because no one truly knows or values the real you. The impact of this behavior doesn't stop at your relationships with others. It seeps into the way you see yourself. When someone dismisses your feelings, especially if it happens repeatedly, it can lead to a form of emotional gaslighting. You begin to question your perception of reality. Was it really that bad? Am I just being overly emotional? These doubts erode your confidence, making it harder to trust your own instincts and harder to stand up for yourself in the future. And let's not forget the ripple effect this has on your emotional health. Suppressing your feelings doesn't make them go away, it only buries them deeper. Unacknowledged emotions don't dissolve, they fester. Over time, this can lead to stress, and even depression. You might find yourself snapping at small things, feeling inexplicably drained, or struggling to find joy in situations that used to make you happy. These are all signs of emotional exhaustion, the result of carrying unspoken burdens for far too long. Sometimes people dismiss your feelings not out of malice, but because they lack the emotional capacity to handle them. They might be uncomfortable with vulnerability, avoidant of conflict, or too wrapped up in their own issues to offer the empathy you deserve. While it's important to understand where someone is coming from, that understanding doesn't excuse their behavior. It's not your job to teach someone how to care, nor is it your responsibility to shrink yourself to fit their limitations. Let's not sugarcoat this. Acknowledging that someone doesn't care enough to value your emotions is painful. It can feel like a rejection of you as a person, not just your feelings, but it's also a necessary wake-up call. You can't control how others treat you, but you can control what you accept. And accepting dismissiveness sends a message to them and to yourself that your feelings are optional, something to be ignored or brushed aside. But your feelings are not optional. They are as real and as vital as your heartbeat. They deserve to be heard, respected, and validated. And if someone can't or won't do that, it's a reflection of their shortcomings, not yours. People who truly care about you will take the time to listen, even when they don't fully understand. They'll create space for your emotions, not because it's always convenient, but because they value you. Learning to stand up for your feelings is an act of self-respect. It's saying, I matter enough to be heard. This doesn't mean demanding validation from those who refuse to give it. It means surrounding yourself with people who offer it freely. It means setting boundaries with those who dismiss you and choosing relationships where mutual respect is a priority. This journey isn't easy. Walking away from people who dismiss your feelings can feel like a loss, especially if there's someone you care about deeply. But it's not truly a loss, it's a step toward freedom. It's a declaration that you will no longer settle for less than you deserve. And in the space left behind, you make room for relationships that nurture and uplift you. Remember, the way someone treats your emotions is a reflection of how they value you. If they dismiss your feelings, they're showing you that they aren't willing to invest the care and effort required for a meaningful connection. You deserve better. You deserve to be surrounded by people who celebrate your highs, hold you through your lows, and honor every emotion in between. Because your feelings are not a burden, they are a gift. They are the truest expression of your humanity, and they deserve to be met with kindness and care. Second, they're only around when it's convenient for them. Oh, you know the type. They show up when they need something, your help, your time, your energy, but when the tables turn and you're the one who needs a hand, they're nowhere to be found. Suddenly they're too busy, too tired, or simply unavailable. Real care doesn't operate on convenience. It shows up when it's inconvenient, when it's hard, when it requires effort. If someone only comes around when it serves them, it's not love, it's selfishness. You've met them before. The ones who show up only when it's convenient for them. The ones who treat your presence like an optional luxury rather than a meaningful part of their lives. These people don't truly care about you, they care about what you can do for them. They care about how you fit into their plans, how you can ease their burdens, how you can make their lives better. But when the roles are reversed, when you're the one in need, they vanish into thin air. It starts subtly, almost imperceptibly. They're too busy to call you back, too tired to meet you halfway, or too distracted to truly listen when you speak. At first you brush it off. After all, everyone gets busy. But then it becomes a pattern. They only reach out when they need something, your advice, your support, your resources. And when you finally muster the courage to ask for something in return, there's always an excuse. I'm swamped at work. I've got a lot going on right now. I wish I could help, but I just can't. And here's the thing, their excuses might even be valid, but it's not about the words they say, it's about the consistency of their actions. A person who truly cares about you won't always be able to drop everything and come running, but they'll make an effort. They'll show you through their actions that you matter, that a priority in their life. But these people, their effort is always conditional, always contingent on what's in it for them. You start to notice it more and more. You're the one who initiates the conversations, the plans, the connection. You're the one who makes the effort to keep the relationship alive. And the moment you stop trying, the silence is deafening. Days turn into weeks and you realize that if you don't reach out, they probably never will. It's not that they're bad people, they might even be charming, funny, and kind in certain moments, but they're not invested in you. They're invested in what you bring to the table. This realization is painful. It's hard to accept that someone you care about might not feel the same way about you. You start to question yourself. Am I not good enough? Did I do something wrong? But the truth is, their behavior has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their priorities. Caring about someone isn't just about enjoying their company when it's convenient. It's about showing up even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when there's nothing to gain. People who only show up when it's convenient don't understand the depth of true connection. They operate on a surface level, engaging with you only when it aligns with their agenda. And the longer you allow this behavior to persist, the more it drains you. You start to feel like a convenience, like a tool, like an afterthought. And no one deserves to feel that way. You deserve relationships where the effort is mutual, where the connection isn't a one-way street. You deserve people who are there for you not because they need something, but because they value you. And valuing someone means making time for them even when it's not convenient. It means prioritizing their well-being, their happiness, their presence in your life. When you're only valued for what you can provide, the relationship becomes transactional. It's no longer about shared experiences, mutual respect, or genuine care. It's about what you can give. And over time, this imbalance takes a toll on your spirit. You start to feel used, unseen, unimportant. And the worst part, these people rarely realize the impact of their actions. To them, it's just the way things are. They're not thinking about how their lack of effort makes you feel. They're thinking about themselves. There's a stark difference between someone who truly cares and someone who's merely taking advantage of your kindness. A person who cares will notice when you're struggling, even if you don't say it out loud. They'll check in, offer support, and remind you that you're not alone. But a person who's only around when it's convenient, they'll turn a blind eye to your pain, pretending not to notice because acknowledging it would require effort, and effort isn't something they're willing to give unless it benefits them. You might find yourself making excuses for them. They're just busy. They have a lot on their plate. And maybe that's true, but being busy isn't an excuse for neglecting the people you care about. Everyone is busy. Everyone has responsibilities, challenges, and struggles, and the struggles and how much they're willing to prioritize you amidst the chaos. True care doesn't vanish when things get tough. It doesn't retreat when it's inconvenient. In fact, it's in those inconvenient moments that true care shines the brightest. When someone makes time for you despite their busy schedule, when they show up even when it's hard, that's when you know they truly care. But if someone is only present when it suits them, their actions are telling you everything you need to know. You deserve better. You deserve relationships that are built on mutual effort, where both parties are equally invested in each other's well-being. You deserve people who show up, not because they have to, but because they want to. And if someone isn't willing to do that, it's a sign that their priorities don't align with yours. Recognizing this can be heartbreaking, especially if the person is someone you've known for a long time or care about deeply. But holding on to a one-sided relationship only prolongs the pain. It keeps you in a cycle of disappointment, always hoping they'll change, always waiting for them to show you the care you deserve. And here's the truth: people rarely change unless they want to. If someone's default is to prioritize their convenience over your well-being, it's unlikely they'll suddenly become the supportive, caring person you need them to be. Change is possible, but it requires self-awareness, effort, and a genuine desire to grow. And that's not something you can force on anyone. Your time, energy, and love are valuable. They're not resources to be given away freely to those who don't appreciate them. When you invest in someone who only takes without giving, you're pouring your energy into a black hole. And the longer you do it, the more drained you become. Walking away from a relationship like this isn't easy. It requires strength, courage, and a deep belief in your own worth. But sometimes letting go is the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for the other person. It sends a clear message: I value myself too much to settle for less than I deserve. And in doing so, you create space for relationships that are truly fulfilling, where the care is mutual and the connection is real. Real care isn't about convenience, it's about commitment, it's about showing up. Even when it's hard, even when there's nothing to gain, even when it's inconvenient. And if someone isn't willing to do that, it's a sign that they don't value the relationship as much as you do. You deserve to be surrounded by people who make you feel seen, valued, and cherished, not just when it's easy, but always. It's a difficult truth to swallow, but one that must be faced. People who only show up when it's convenient for them are not genuinely invested in you. They may enjoy your presence, appreciate what you bring to the table, and even seem affectionate at times, but their actions or lack of them speak louder than any words they could ever say. You are more than a momentary distraction or a temporary benefit in someone else's life. And yet, staying in relationships where you are treated as such can make you forget your own worth. Think about what it means to truly care for someone. Care isn't just about sharing laughs when times are good. It's not just about showing up for the fun moments, the celebrations, or the easy days. True care means being there through the storms, the struggles, and the times when there's no immediate reward for offering support. It means investing in the connection, not because it benefits you, but because you value the person on the other side of it. But people who only show up when it's convenient don't operate on this level. For them, relationships are more like transactions. They measure their involvement by what they can get rather than what they can give. If being there for you feels inconvenient or requires effort, they'll retreat. They might use excuses that seem reasonable on the surface, but when you step back and examine the pattern, it becomes clear. It's not about occasional lapses or genuine availability, it's about a consistent lack of care. And here's where the real damage happens. The longer you stay in these relationships, the more normalized this behavior becomes. You start to second guess yourself, wondering if your expectations are too high or if you're asking for too much. You might even begin to lower your standards, thinking that maybe this is just the way people are. But it's not. True, meaningful connections don't feel like one-sided efforts. They don't leave you feeling empty, unseen, or unimportant. The toll this takes on your emotional well-being cannot be understated. When you're consistently the one giving, the one reaching out, and the one making the effort, it drains you. It's like pouring water into a cup that has a hole at the bottom. It doesn't matter how much you pour it, it never fills. Over time, you might feel resentful, exhausted, or even numb. And that's no way to live. It's important to recognize that convenience-based relationships aren't always malicious. Some people are simply unaware of their own selfish tendencies. They might not realize how their actions or lack thereof impact you. But whether intentional or not, their behavior still has consequences. And it's not your responsibility to constantly explain, justify, or excuse their lack of effort. One of the most powerful realizations you can have is this: the way someone treats you is a reflection of their values, not your worth. Just because someone doesn't show up for you doesn't mean you're unworthy of love or care. It simply means they don't have the capacity or willingness to meet you where you are. And that's on them, not you. When you allow relationships like this to linger, you're essentially telling yourself that this is the best you can do, that this level of care is all you deserve. But deep down, you know that's not true. You know you're capable of giving so much more, and you deserve to receive just as much in return. Sometimes walking away from these relationships is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. It's not about punishing the other person or holding grudges. It's about reclaiming your time, energy, and emotional well-being. It's about making room for people who truly value you, who are willing to show up even when it's not easy. When you let go of convenience-based relationships, something incredible happens. You begin to rediscover your own worth. You start to realize that your time and energy are precious, that your love is a gift, and that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. And when you set those boundaries, you attract the kind of people who appreciate you for who you are, not just for what you can offer. These relationships may not always be plentiful, but they will be meaningful. They'll remind you what it feels like to be cared for without conditions, to be supported without strings attached, and to be loved simply because you exist. And isn't that what we're all searching for? A connection that feels real, mutual, and true? The journey to this kind of relationship begins with recognizing the patterns in your current ones. Who reaches out to you only when they need something? Who disappears when you need support? Who makes excuses when it's their turn to show up? These questions aren't easy to ask, and the answers can be even harder to accept. But they're necessary. Because until you acknowledge the imbalance, you can't take the steps to correct it. There's strength in choosing yourself. It's not selfish, it's necessary. When you prioritize your own well-being, you set a standard for how others should treat you. You show the world and yourself that you are worthy of love, care, and effort. And that's a lesson that will serve you for a lifetime. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your wins, comfort you in your losses, and stand beside you no matter what. These are the people who truly care about you, the ones who see you as a priority rather than an option. They might not be perfect, they'll make mistakes, as we all do, but their effort will always be there. And in the end, it's that effort that makes all the difference. Third, they make you feel small. People who don't care about you won't celebrate your wins. In fact, they'll make you doubt your achievements. Maybe they'll say, "Oh, anyone could have done that." Or give you a sarcastic little smirk when you're excited about something. They'll undermine your confidence because they can't stand to see you shine brighter than them. But let me tell you this, people who love you, who care for you, will never dim your light, they'll fuel it. There's something deeply unsettling about being in the presence of someone who trivializes your struggles as if your pain is an inconvenience or your battles are insignificant. It's a dismissive behavior that cuts deeper than words, because it erodes something essential: your sense of validation. Everyone goes through challenges, but what defines a genuine connection is the ability to lean on someone and feel seen, heard, and understood. When someone trivializes what you're going through, they don't just fail to support you, they invalidate the very essence of your humanity. You might recognize this pattern in people who dismiss your hardships with a casual "it's not that bad" or "you'll get over it." At first, it might seem like they're trying to help, offering what they perceive as encouragement. But over time, you realize their words are not about lifting you up, they're about dismissing the weight of what you're carrying. They don't want to engage with your pain because it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, or beyond their capacity to empathize. Instead, they brush it off, leaving you to wrestle with your feelings alone. When someone trivializes your struggles, it can make you question the legitimacy of your own experiences. You start to wonder if maybe you are overreacting, if maybe your pain really isn't as valid as it feels. This self-doubt can be paralyzing, creating a cycle where you suppress your emotions, downplay your challenges, and convince yourself that your struggles aren't worth addressing. But the truth is, pain isn't something that can be measured or compared. What hurts you is real, and no one has the right to minimize it. There's a significant difference between someone trying to offer perspective and someone who dismisses your reality. Perspective is a gift and invitation to see your situation in a broader context, offered with care and understanding. Dismissiveness, on the other hand, is a refusal to acknowledge your feelings, a way of saying your pain doesn't matter enough for me to take seriously. The former is supportive, the latter is harmful. This behavior often stems from a lack of emotional maturity or an inability to confront discomfort. People who trivialize others' struggles may not know how to handle vulnerability. They might be uncomfortable with emotions, viewing them as messy or burdensome. Or perhaps they're so consumed by their own lives that they lack the bandwidth to truly see someone else's pain. Whatever the reason, their behavior reveals more about them than it does about you. But knowing this doesn't make it hurt any less. When someone you care about diminishes your struggles, it feels like a betrayal. This is someone you trusted, someone you hoped would be there for you in your time of need. Instead, they've dismissed you, leaving you to feel isolated and unsupported. This can be especially painful when it comes from someone close, a partner, a family member, or a friend, because it forces you to confront the possibility that they might not be as invested in you as you are in them. Trivialization can also make you feel small. When your struggles are minimized, it sends a message that your pain isn't significant, that your feelings don't deserve attention or care. Over time, this can chip away at your sense of self-worth, making you hesitant to open up or seek help when you need it. You might start to bottle up your emotions, convincing yourself that no one will understand or care. But carrying your struggles alone is a heavy burden, and it's not one you should have to bear. It's important to remember that your pain is valid, no matter how it compares to someone else's. Struggles aren't a competition. What matters is how your experiences affect you, not whether it meets someone else's threshold of significance. If something hurts you, it deserves to be acknowledged and addressed. No one else gets to decide what's worth your tears, your anger, or your sadness. In relationships, this kind of dismissiveness can create an imbalance that's hard to ignore. When one person repeatedly downplays the other's struggles, it sets the stage for resentment and distance. The person being dismissed may start to feel unheard, unseen, and undervalued. And the one doing the dismissing, whether intentionally or not, communicates that they're unwilling to engage with the deeper, more vulnerable aspects of the relationship. This dynamic undermines trust, intimacy, and connection, leaving both parties unfulfilled. But the harm doesn't stop there. Trivialization doesn't just impact your relationship with the person dismissing you, it also affects how you relate to yourself. If you're constantly told that your struggles aren't valid, you might start to internalize that message. You might dismiss your own feelings, convincing yourself that you're being dramatic or overly sensitive. This kind of self-neglect can lead to a host of emotional and mental health issues, from chronic stress and anxiety to feelings of unworthiness and despair. It's also worth noting that people who trivialize others' struggles often do so as a way to avoid their own. By minimizing your pain, they create distance from their own discomfort, refusing to confront the complexities of emotions and relationships. This behavior is a defense mechanism, a way to protect themselves from vulnerability. But in doing so, they not only fail to support you, they also rob themselves of the opportunity to build deeper, more meaningful connections. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward breaking free from its effects. If someone consistently trivializes your struggles, it's a sign that they may not be able or willing to provide the support you need. This doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person, but it does mean that their capacity for empathy and care is limited. And while it's natural to want to help them see the impact of their behavior, it's not your responsibility to fix or change them. Instead, focus on creating relationships where your struggles are met with compassion, understanding, and respect. Surround yourself with people who listen without judgment, who validate your feelings, and who offer support without trying to fix you. These are the people who will remind you that you're not alone, that your pain is real, and that it's okay to not be okay. It's also crucial to practice self-validation. Remind yourself that your feelings are valid, even if others fail to acknowledge them. Seek out spaces where you can express yourself freely, whether that's through therapy, journaling, or talking to someone you trust. The more you honor your own emotions, the less power others will have to dismiss them. Letting go of relationships where trivialization is a pattern can be difficult, especially if you care deeply about the person involved. But staying in these dynamics often does more harm than good. You deserve connections where your struggles are met with empathy, not indifference.